Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Sabrina Rising. I'm a spiritual mentor and a psychic medium. Welcome to my channel. If you are on a personal development journey or if you're on a journey to healing yourself, perhaps you want to develop your intuition or you want to learn how to manifest a life that you love, I have some really great content here. Take a moment to just browse around and feel free to leave comments, ask questions. I would love to hear from you. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of forgiveness, why this is such a fundamental aspect of being able to feel well inside, to have peace, which is foundational for being able to create a life that we love. Okay, so this is something that we take for granted as humans, the power of forgiveness. It's very normal in your human experience to feel angry or hurt or upset or triggered by another person's behavior. Okay, and oftentimes the hurt can be so huge that the idea of forgiveness is just, it's not available to us. Okay, and so in situations where the pain is so extreme, it's really important that we get the support that we need to receive the empathy required in order to feel well inside, in order to heal. Okay, so empathy would be the first place to start. If you've been wronged or betrayed or abandoned or abused or mistreated in any way, shape, or form, it's very important to receive empathy for what you've been through before we can even move on to the forgiveness stage. Okay, so as much as we're going to talk about the importance of forgiveness, I want to sort of start us off with this understanding that it's we don't want to bypass any of the experiences that we have. We don't want to hurry to the stage of forgiveness before it's truly authentic for us to be able to forgive. We've done the work to heal ourselves where we feel like forgiveness becomes available. Okay, so that's very, very, very important for so many of us. And if you watch my other videos, you'll know that I talk a lot about early childhood conditioning. And so for so many of us, we experience trauma in our childhoods. We experience abandonment, betrayal, abuse, all of the things that I've mentioned. And we're victims of that because as children, we really have no control over our environment. Right? Our caregivers are responsible for us, and however, for better for worse, this is the experience we're having, right? And there are karmic reasons for that as well. And so here we are in this environment, and we're victims of this betrayal, this hurt, this abuse. And again, we have no control over it. And so it's natural to, as we grow up, that we harden, that we become cynical in our thinking, that we become guarded, that we become even unconsciously, emotionally unavailable, to make ourselves vulnerable in relationships or situations because we want to protect ourselves, right? This is a very common human evolutionary process for those of us that have had traumatic childhoods. Even if your childhood was not that traumatic, if you've been hurt or let down or sad and you didn't fully process your feelings, you didn't have caregivers that were emotionally available to you to help you process your feelings, then chances are you have some pent-up resentment. Okay, and after facilitating inner work for clients for over 2 decades, I've heard many, many, many childhoods. I've never met anybody who didn't have some resentments, even in the best of circumstances. Okay, so this is perfectly normal. Give yourself grace, give yourself permission to acknowledge some of the resentments that you might still be harboring towards mom, dad, caregiver, sibling, aunt, extended family, whoever was part of your early childhood experience. Okay, so the first step would be to really get out a piece of paper and pen. And I always advocate for this as you're listening to my videos, just hit pause and make some notes along the way. Okay, so start to think of some of the people that you might be harboring resentments towards. Really just make a list of who they are and start to jot down some of those resentments. Now, this work can be challenging because it brings up guilt, right? We don't want to, for example, we have guilt towards our parents. We don't want to necessarily talk about some of the things that upset us or hurt us because we have a broader context for the sacrifices that they made and how much they gave us, or, how much whatever their capacity was, or how they suffered in their own life and therefore were not available to us. And however whatever context you have for the relationship with your parents, taking an honest look at the resentments, at the some of the memories that you have that are painful in your caregiver environment is never an act of blame or vilification. Okay, so this is not meant to, enable you to be angry at your caregivers. Not at all. Quite the opposite. What we want to do is take an honest look at our experience simply for the purpose of understanding what we've been programmed with, right? What we're holding on to, essentially. In early childhood, everything that happens to us is programmed into our subconscious, right? And we don't have really a filter or the awareness to say, I'm not going to take this on, right? We just absorb the energy of our environment. And so we may not even be conscious of some of these resentments, and might take some inner work and some, like I said, some rigorous self-reflection and self-honesty to become aware of some of these resentments and some of this bitterness that you might still be carrying. As an adult, you might be fully conscious of some of the resentments that you have. You have adult relationships, perhaps a situation at work, or situation with a sibling or family member, something that happened, maybe even recently, that really upset you, right? And you haven't fully processed it, right? So again, we have lingering resentments. So we have the ones that we're conscious of and the ones that we're unconscious of. And the more we sit down to go back as far as we can through the timeline of our lives and think about some of the people that influenced us in our early childhood, all the way up to present day, whoever it is on your list that you feel you might have some bitterness towards, as we start to process these feelings, more memories will start to surface, and you'll be able to release more as you do this work. Now, it takes a willingness and a commitment. It also takes a fundamental understanding, which I'm about to say this, and it might trigger you. I know it triggered me when I first stumbled upon this. There's no such thing as a justified resentment. And what I mean by that is that under no circumstances, no matter how bad the violation was, no matter how horrific, how violent the violation was, you are still responsible for your own healing journey. Okay, we're never responsible for the people that harm us, and we can't control them. We can't change what happened. But what we can do is take personal responsibility for the quality of our own healing journey, and make a commitment to forgive and to process the events so that we can have peace. It's also really important to note that harboring these resentments is affecting your well-being. Okay, so, and again, we may not necessarily be conscious of this because we've been harboring these resentments for so long. Perhaps you've had a lifelong grudge, or you've had a pain in your heart about something that's unresolved. Perhaps there's a family member that you're not talking to anymore for very justifiable reasons, right? And I don't want to diminish the gravity of whatever it is that you might have experienced in your life. But I do want to emphasize that regardless of that gravity, there is still an essential. It's essential for anyone to really look at that situation and be willing to forgive, even yourself. Ultimately, as we do this work, we realize that oftentimes the person that we really must forgive is ourselves. How do we allow this to happen in our lives? How did we condone this type of behavior? Perhaps how did I stay in this relationship for as long as I did, or things like that, right? So it's very important that when we do this work, we do it with a willingness to clean our slate, right? We want to be free. We want to be able to travel light. We want to have peace in our hearts, and peace in your heart will enable you to have peace in your mind and peace in your body. Okay, this is fundamental to healing. I mean, I've held space for clients who have processed resentments under horrific circumstances. Awful things have happened to them in their childhoods, and yet the healing that is available once we really give ourselves permission to forgive is highly transformational and life altering. Okay, so the first thing I would do, as I mentioned, is take out a piece of paper and pen and jot down all the people you can think of, including yourself. Okay, so make sure you put yourself on that list, because chances are you're holding yourself hostage to things or mistakes you've done in the past, or things that you haven't really let go of yet or fully processed. And that self-judgment, self-condemnation acts like an anchor, and it really limits what's available to you. It limits your capacity to love, to receive, to manifest, to create from the realm of infinite possibilities, right? Think about if you have been, for example, let's say somebody broke your heart, a long time ago, and you've been sort of guarded ever since. Think about how the not processing that fully and not being able to fully forgive that person and forgive yourself for what happened, how that's affecting your capacity to love, to receive love, to believe in love, to trust love, to feel safe in love, right? And this is just one example. So there's so many different examples I could cite in terms of the power of forgiveness, and how this really unblocks our channel for receiving love and ultimately receiving anything our heart desires. Okay, so as we do this work, it really expands our hearts, and it gives us, again, peace of mind, which creates an overall feeling of wellness in the body. Okay, and forgiveness can mean, something as simple as writing a letter. It can mean something as simple as just jotting out all the resentments, as I mentioned earlier. All of these things are very valuable. But it requires intention and courage, and the understanding that once you let this go, fully let this go, that you're going to have peace like you've never had it before, and it's going to be so worth it, right? And it's not about condoning other people's behavior or letting anyone off the hook. It's really about choosing yourself and putting your own well-being first. Okay, and this is so important, especially for those of us that are intuitive. If you're developing your intuition, if you're on a personal development journey and you want to learn how to manifest abundance, and you want to learn how to bring all this amazing stuff into your life, as I mentioned about developing intuition, if you want to learn how to channel and really receive messages from your guides, from the spirit realm, we have to be clear, right? And the thing that obstructs most human beings is a lack of forgiveness, harboring resentments, harboring unresolved emotions, unresolved events in your life that are really blocking your ability to perceive yourself and others as whole and complete, as love, as peaceful, right? And as clear. And so this is so important for every single one of us on a healing journey. Okay. So I really advise you, when you're watching this video, the importance of forgiveness is so essential to your well-being. If you're struggling with physical ailments, do the forgiveness work. You're going to see a major improvement in the lightness in your body. If you're struggling with emotional distress and you do the forgiveness work, you're going to see that is also very highly alleviated as you do this processing. If you're struggling with mental anguish or stress or anxiety, or perhaps you have ruminating thoughts about something that's occurred in your life that you just can't let it go, this forgiveness work will liberate you once and for all. Okay. So again, my advice would be to write it all out, use pen to paper so it can actually literally leave your body, and do some deep belly breathing, which I also advocate for. This helps regulate the nervous system. So deep diaphragmatic breathing would really, set the intention to let this go. And if you feel like you need support, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, make sure you get empathy for what happened to you. Okay. Empathy is the first stage. So receiving empathy for the hurt, for the pain, for, the harm that was done is essential. And then again, taking responsibility for your own resentments, moving on to, once you've received the empathy, you want to look at, how is holding on to this resentment impacting you in your life? Like, how is it hurting you? You may not even realize it, but you might be guarded when it comes to love. You might be cynical when it comes to your career possibilities. You might be jaded when it comes to your financial health or ability to have abundance. You want to look at some of the judgments that you're holding on to as it relates to these areas of your life, and notice how they're all connected to an event at some point in the timeline of your life that you haven't fully processed, that you haven't fully forgiven. Okay. And most importantly, remember to make a whole list of things that you want to forgive yourself for, because oftentimes we are our own worst critics, and we really condemn ourselves for our past mistakes, and that holds us back from living a fully self-expressed life. Okay, I hope this is helpful. This is my message to you today, is to practice forgiveness as a path to unconditional love, as a path to self-liberation, as a path to channeling and developing clear intuition and clear insights, clear inner knowing as to, how to navigate this human experience, and obviously make the most of this life. For those of you that are interested, I'm going to be doing a live mediumship demonstration on March 1st. Oftentimes, I have found that when we have caregivers that have wronged us or harmed us at some point in our childhood, and they've crossed over, so we haven't had a chance to really have that conversation with them, or hold them accountable, or receive that apology, or really process the events of what happened, The mediumship can be a beautiful tool to help connect you with your loved one that has crossed over, that you still feel incomplete with. And so I feel very passionate about this. I'm going to be doing these on a regular basis. So I'll put the link at the bottom for you to register, so that you can, it's a 2-hour workshop, and you can connect with your loved one in the spirit realm that has crossed over. You can ask questions. There is some inner work that we're going to do together. So there's a sheet that you'll receive so you can process some of your unresolved issues. And again, this is all in the vein of helping you find peace and getting complete and neutralizing karma for yourself and the ones that have crossed over, as well. This is so, so, so important that, the things that we don't resolve in this current life, we bring forward, we bring it into the next life and the next life. And so take the opportunity to really practice forgiveness, to really be conscious of what it is that you need to let go of, so that you can fully forgive all beings in your life, including yourself, so that you can have peace in this life and all the lifetimes to come. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I would always love to hear from you. Thanks.